On February 20th, 2026, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt held a briefing where she fielded questions on housing affordability, Middle East peace, and tariff-free rate checks. The briefing showcased a pattern that's become familiar in recent weeks. Sweeping claims about the administration's economic success paired with vague or incomplete answers when pressed for specifics on policy implementation. Leavitt's most detailed answer came in response to a question about housing affordability, where she connected several of the administration's signature policies, deportations, restrictions on institutional investors, and permitting reforms, into a narrative about falling rents and improving conditions for American families. But when asked about other policy initiatives, including the tariff-free rate checks the president has promised and the timeline for deploying an international stability force in the Middle East, the answers were notably less specific. Watch how Leavitt responded when asked whether Trump would consider banning foreign nationals from buying homes, similar to policies in Canada and other countries.
Well, first of all, the president is obviously committed to deporting illegal aliens from our country and those who are not lawfully present in the United States, which he has done at a record pace, which has led to the falling of rents, as I pointed out in my opening remarks. Secondly, the president has recently announced that he is fighting for a ban on institutional investors and Wall Street billionaire corporations from buying up single-family homes that should be lived in his opinion, by American families. We know this is going to have a remarkable impact on the housing market and on prices and supply and demand for the American consumer and the American family. And then thirdly, the president is also expediting permitting as fast as we possibly can to build more homes, to increase supply, to obviously bring down the cost of home ownership and purchasing homes for the American people. And then also, as I mentioned as well, we do see mortgage rates falling. So all of this is combining to make housing more affordable in this country. There's still a lot more to do. The president is still digging his way out of the mess that was created by Joe Biden's administration in jacking up mortgage rates and jacking up housing costs. But we do see very positive trends in this direction. And the president wants the United States to be a nation of owners, not renters. He wants families to live in homes, not institutions and big corporations.
Leavitt laid out three pillars of the administration's housing strategy: deportations leading to falling rents, a ban on institutional investors buying single-family homes, and expedited permitting for new construction. Each claim requires unpacking because the reality is more complicated. First, the claim that deportations have led to the falling of rents. It's true that rents have fallen, but the connection to deportations is disputed by housing economists who point to other factors. According to the Washington Times, monthly rents fell to their lowest level since 2022 and posted the sixth straight monthly decline in January, with a 6.2% drop from 2022. However, real estate experts said the drop is caused by several factors, including hundreds of thousands of newly built apartment buildings creating oversupply. Cato Institute economist Alex Noraste stated, "To the extent that the Trump administration has reduced legal immigration, increased deportations, and reduced the net inflow of people in the United States, maybe even turn it negative, that has had an effect of lowering rents and housing prices." The key phrase is "to the extent." Noraste acknowledges deportations as a factor, but not the only or even primary factor. The oversupply of new apartments from construction begun years ago under different policies plays a major role. Stateline reported that Trump's and Vance's claims about immigration driving housing costs are not true, according to many housing and immigration experts. Undocumented immigrants are key to the construction industry, meaning fewer homes get built without their labor. A University of Utah study found that after the Obama-era Secure Communities deportations, counties lost roughly a year's worth of residential construction 3 years later. The claim that deportations lower rents is partially supported in some markets, but broader analysis suggests short-term effects could be offset by long-term supply reductions. Second, the ban on institutional investors. According to CBS News, institutional investors own roughly 1% of total single-family housing stock. reaching 4.2% in Atlanta, 2.6% in Dallas, and 2.2% in Houston. Redfin chief economist Daryl Fairweather told Yahoo Finance, "The reason housing has gotten so unaffordable is because there is a shortage of homes." She said policies encouraging building are more likely to improve affordability than banning institutional landlords. Leavitt's prediction of remarkable impact is disputed by economists who say restricting investors owning 1% of homes won't meaningfully move the affordability needle. Third, expedited permitting and falling mortgage rates are real initiatives, but attributing falling mortgage rates to Trump policy ignores the Federal Reserve, which sets rates independently based on inflation data. The pattern is clear. Take real data, falling rents, falling mortgage rates, attribute it primarily to Trump policies, deportations, investor ban, and Project Future success based on policies whose effects are disputed by experts. Now, watch what happened when reporters asked about other policy details, questions requiring specific timelines or concrete answers.
Caroline, can you tell me, is there an update regarding the tariff rebate checks that the White House has promised?
I don't have an update for you on timeline, but I know that it's something that the president and his economic team continue to very seriously discuss.
First, does the president see some sort of religious or prophetic component to the unfolding developments in the Middle East?
Sure.
Another question on that Board of Peace announcement. You mentioned there will be the announcement of who comprises that International Stability Force. How soon will that force be deployed? And have all of the regional partners, all of the regional countries signed off on the makeup of that force?
I don't have a timeline for you today, but again, I'm sure you'll hear more about this tomorrow.
3 questions, 3 non-answers. On the tariff-free rate checks, a policy the president has publicly promised, Leavitt said there's no timeline update, but the team is very seriously discussing it. That's Washington speak for, "We don't have a plan yet, but we're aware you're asking about it." On whether Trump sees a religious or prophetic component to Middle East developments, a question that matters because some evangelical supporters explicitly frame the region's conflicts in biblical terms. Leavitt said she hasn't spoken to him about it. That's a fair answer if it's true, but it sidesteps the substantive question about how religious beliefs might be influencing U.S. foreign policy in the region. On the International Stability Force for the Middle East Peace Plan, when it will deploy and whether regional partners have signed off, Leavitt again said she doesn't have a timeline, but you'll hear more about this tomorrow. Tomorrow came and went, and as of this recording, the composition and deployment timeline for that force still haven't been fully detailed publicly. The contrast between the 2 types of answers is instructive. When the question allows for political messaging about administration successes like housing affordability, Leavitt provides detailed, multi-part answers connecting various policies into a narrative of progress. When the question requires specific information about policy implementation, timelines, diplomatic agreements, religious influences on decision-making, the answers become vague or deferred. This isn't unique to Leavitt or to this administration. Press secretaries of both parties have long used similar tactics to avoid committing to specifics on policies that are still being developed or that might be politically sensitive. But the pattern is worth noting. Sweeping claims about what's been accomplished, vague answers about what's coming next. Watch how Leavitt opened the briefing before taking any questions.
What President Trump wants Americans to understand is that this is only the start and the best is yet to come. The historic success that we have seen since he took office is just the beginning of enormous growth and opportunity that we are about to witness. And I know the president looks forward to hitting the road and being with the great people of Georgia tomorrow to talk about just this. So with that, today, I know there's a lot of news. I will open it up to take your questions.
This is only the start, and the best is yet to come. That's the framing device for the entire briefing, and for much of the administration's messaging in recent weeks. Every press conference, every speech, every social media post carries some version of this message. What you're seeing now is impressive. But it's nothing compared to what's coming. The strategy is clear. By constantly positioning current results as a down payment on future success, the administration creates a moving target for critics. If the data doesn't yet show the promised transformation, if grocery prices are still high, if housing is still unaffordable for most first-time buyers, if wages haven't meaningfully increased, the response is, just wait. The best is yet to come. This messaging approach has advantages and risks. The advantage is that it maintains optimism and forward momentum. Voters who supported Trump because they wanted change can be told that change is arriving, even if they're not feeling it yet in their own lives. The risk is that if the promised results don't materialize on a timeline that matches public expectations, the repeated assurances start to feel hollow. On housing specifically, Leavitt said rents are falling because of deportations. The investor ban will have remarkable impact. Permitting is being expedited, and mortgage rates are dropping. But she also acknowledged there's still a lot more to do, and blamed the Biden administration for the mess Trump is digging his way out of. That hedge is important. It preserves the ability to say months or years from now that progress has been made, but the inherited problems were worse than anyone realized. The White House is making a clear bet on housing, that voters will credit Trump's policies for falling rents and improving affordability, even though economists disagree about causation and warn that some of those same policies, particularly mass deportations of construction workers, could reduce housing supply and drive prices back up in the medium term. The data Leavitt cited is real. Rents have fallen for 6 straight months. The administration has signed an executive order restricting institutional investors from buying single-family homes. Permitting reforms are being pursued. But the gap between these things are happening and these things are happening because of Trump policies and will produce the results we're promising is where the debate lies. Trump signed the executive order banning institutional investors on January 20th, 2026. Experts immediately questioned whether it would make a meaningful difference, given that institutional investors own only about 1% of single-family homes nationwide. Economists warned that forcing these investors out of the market could reduce supply and drive up rents since they contribute to the rental housing stock. Housing advocates argued that the real problem is a shortage of homes, not who owns them. On deportations and rent, the picture is similarly mixed. Yes, some markets, particularly in Texas, have seen rents fall as sudden vacancies appear when immigrants leave. But the same deportations are removing workers from the construction industry, which could slow new housing development and create long-term supply problems that outweigh short-term vacancy gains. The administration's messaging strategy is to claim credit for positive trends, defer on questions about implementation, and promise that better results are coming. That's a bet on time that by the midterm elections in November 2026, enough voters will feel like their housing costs are improving that they'll reward Republicans at the ballot box. Whether that bet pays off depends on factors the administration can't fully control. Federal Reserve interest rate decisions, construction industry dynamics, state and local zoning policies, and the complex interplay between immigration enforcement and labor supply. But at the podium, the message is simple. This is working, and the best is yet to come. If this kind of coverage matters to you, hit subscribe.